I never imagined the two people I trusted most would be the ones to destroy my world. Yet there I was, watching my marriage and career crumble in the same breath, betrayed by my own flesh and blood and backstabbed in the boardroom. My name is Jessica Raynor. I'm 33, and this is the story of how my life fell apart and how I pieced it back together, not as a victim, but as a victor seeking justice. It all started in Asheville, North Carolina, where I thought I had it all: a loving husband, a tight-knit family, and a promising job. I was blissfully unaware that a storm was brewing on both fronts of my life. In the span of a few weeks, I discovered my husband's affair with my sister and endured a sabotage at work that nearly ended my career. The double whammy sent me reeling. Devastated, I realized I had two choices: let them win or fight back. Spoiler alert, I fought back. Before I get ahead of myself, let me take you through the whirlwind. Buckle up. This journey goes from betrayal and despair to plotted payback and sweet justice. The early days of last year felt golden. Spring had come to Asheville, painting the Blue Ridge Mountains in lush green. Every morning, I would sip my coffee on the porch of our cozy home, thinking I was living a small-town American dream. I had a handsome husband, Michael, who could make me laugh until my sides hurt. My younger sister, Emily, lived just across town. We were as close as sisters could be, or so I thought. And I had a job I loved as a marketing manager at a local firm. On paper, my life looked picture perfect. Looking back, I can see the little warning signs I missed. Michael was working late often, claiming big projects at the office. I was proud of his dedication. He was a software developer, always debugging something. So I bought his excuses without a second thought. As for Emily, she'd been distant lately, canceling our coffee dates a lot. She'd just joked that I was a smothering big sister when I asked if she was okay. I figured she was just busy or in a funk. Work was my haven. My boss, Steve, had been mentoring me for a potential promotion to project director. I was leading a high-profile campaign for a major client. Hoping it would clinch that promotion, I poured my heart into it, often staying late. Michael would tease that I was married to my job as much as to him. If only I knew then what I know now, I might have caught the hints that something was off both at home and at work. Life had a way of lulling me into complacency right before the gut punch. I remember an evening in April, one of those perfect spring nights downtown. Michael and I had dinner downtown. Michael was a little on edge, glued to his phone. I brushed it off. At work the next day, Steve gave me a thumbs up on a presentation. Everything seemed fine. I had no idea I was living in the calm before a double-barreled storm. It happened on a Friday, the day I usually met Emily for our sister lunch. She canceled on me again with a flimsy excuse about not feeling well. I decided to surprise her with some hot soup and her favorite donuts from a local bakery. Big mistake, or maybe the best decision I ever made, depending on how you look at it. When I let myself into Emily's apartment, we had keys to each other's places for emergencies. I immediately sensed something was off. The living room was empty, but I heard noises from her bedroom down the hall, muffled voices, a giggle that distinctly belonged to my sister, and then a low tone that made my stomach drop. It was Michael's voice. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought it had burst out of my chest. At first, I prayed I was wrong. Maybe Michael was helping her with something. A computer issue? That hope died the second I heard a telltale moan. My blood ran cold. Hands trembling, I walked down the hall. The bedroom door was halfway open. One peek confirmed everything. There was my husband in bed with my sister. For a second, it felt like the floor gave out beneath me. I must have made a noise, a gasp, a sob, who knows, because they both turned to look at me standing there. Time froze. All I remember is Emily scrambling off the bed, barely clutching a sheet to cover herself, and Michael stammering, "Jess, I can explain." Explain? I finally found my voice, and it was shaking with rage and hurt. I felt a wave of nausea. My hands were still carrying the takeout bag with soup and donuts, and without thinking, I hurled it at him. The container burst open, scalding soup splattering across the floor and likely on Michael. He yelped, but I was beyond caring. "Explain how you've been screwing my sister," I shouted, voice cracking. "On second thought, don't. I'm done." Emily started crying, but her tears meant nothing in that moment. I shot her a look that could have cut glass. "You're my sister, Emily. How could you?" I didn't wait for an answer. I stormed out, slamming the front door so hard a picture frame in her hall crashed to the floor. In the span of minutes, my entire reality shifted. I drove off in a blind fury, tears blurring my vision. Somehow, I ended up at a nearby park and just sat there in the car, heaving with sobs. My phone kept buzzing with their calls. I tossed it aside, not ready to deal with either of them. Grief and white-hot anger swirled inside me. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? Being cheated on by my husband was devastating enough. Having it be with my own sister was a whole new level of agony. As the sun dipped low, I finally mustered the strength to drive away. One thing was clear. I couldn't face them yet. I needed time to think and brace myself for the fallout to come. My fight was only just beginning. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel instead, needing neutral ground to process the betrayal. The irony? I used our joint credit card for the room, let Michael see that charge and wonder. Let him panic. I didn't care. My phone kept ringing with their names flashing on the screen. Both left voicemails. Michael begging me to talk, Emily pleading for forgiveness. I deleted them all. How do you accidentally fall into bed with your sister's husband? I wasn't ready to hear any excuses. Telling my parents was the next dreaded task. Mom sobbed on the phone, and Dad blew up in rage. They wanted to drive to Asheville immediately. I told them not yet. I needed to handle this first on my own terms. When I finally returned to the house to pack some clothes, Michael was there on the couch, head in hands. He jumped up as I walked in, looking like hell. "Jessica, please, we need to talk." I held up a hand. "Now you want to talk? Was I not interesting enough before you decided to screw my sister?" I spat, ice cold. He winced. "It just happened, don't." I cut him off, shaking with anger. "How long?" He hung his head. "A few months." My stomach churned. "And you love her?" I could barely get the words out. He whispered, I think so." It felt like a knife through my heart. I steadied myself and fixed him with the fiercest look I could muster. "We're done, Michael. You and my sister. You two deserve each other." Tears filled his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jess. I hate myself for hurting you." "You have no idea what hurt is," I said quietly, fury undercutting each word. "But you will." I threw some essentials into a suitcase and headed for the door. "Expect divorce papers. And lose my number." I walked out without looking back. My parents arrived the next day despite my wishes. They were devastated on my behalf and livid at Emily. I heard that Emily was telling them she and Michael were soulmates who never meant to hurt anyone. That garbage only made me angrier. I told Mom and Dad I needed space and wasn't ready to see Emily. They understood completely. They were barely speaking to her themselves. My personal life was in shambles. Little did I know that my work life was about to implode as well, turning this into the perfect storm. Amidst the personal chaos, I returned to work seeking a shred of normalcy. I dived back into the big marketing campaign I was leading, determined to keep my professional life intact. We had a high-stakes presentation with a major client, and despite my emotional exhaustion, I was prepared, or so I thought. During that presentation, the client's CFO flagged a glaring error in our budget projections. My stomach dropped. I had double-checked every figure, yet the numbers on the printout were wildly off, making our whole plan look foolish. The meeting went off the rails as we adjourned to fix the issue. I stood there flushing with humiliation, stammering an apology, and assuring them I'd resolve the confusion. Back in our conference room, my boss Steve tore into me. He acted outraged and disappointed, questioning my competence in front of the team. I was shell-shocked. I knew something was wrong. I would never make such a careless mistake. After everyone left, I raced to my desk and pulled up the original files on my computer. Sure enough, my saved version had all the correct numbers. Someone had tampered with the version we presented. A quick check of the document history revealed it was last edited late the night before. By Steve. He sabotaged me. I confronted him privately that evening. "Steve, I checked the proposal. I know you changed my numbers." He leaned back in his chair, giving me a patronizing look. "Jessica, I think you're under a lot of stress. Perhaps you misremember. Regardless, Maybe you should take some personal time if you can't handle the pressure." My blood boiled. He didn't even bother denying it outright. "Why would you do this to me?" I asked through clenched teeth. He shrugged as if I were being irrational. "We all make mistakes. Don't go around casting blame. It's not a good look." I realized arguing was pointless. He held the power, and he was setting me up as the scapegoat. I left his office before my anger exploded. Sitting in my car in the empty parking lot, I finally let the tears flow. Betrayal at home and now betrayal at work. It was a 1-2 punch. Part of me wanted to quit on the spot out of despair, but a stronger part of me, the part fueled by pure injustice, refused to bow out. I had worked too hard to let this snake ruin me. I wiped my tears, grip tightening on the steering wheel. No way was I letting them win. Not my cheating husband and not my backstabbing boss. If life was going to knock me down, I was going to get up fighting. The following weeks were some of the darkest of my life. I managed to finish the big project at work, and the client stayed on, but the damage to my reputation was done. The promotion I'd worked for evaporated. It was given to someone else while I was quietly sidelined. Steve had effectively stalled my career, and I was constantly on edge that I might get fired next. Meanwhile, I started divorce proceedings. I handed my lawyer all the evidence of Michael's affair, painful as it was to dig up those text messages, ensuring the law would be on my side. North Carolina's divorce laws consider marital misconduct, and I wanted to make sure I got what I deserved after what he did. Despite my simmering anger, a heavy sadness settled in. I moved into a tiny downtown apartment and avoided everyone. I could barely eat or sleep. Most nights I'd sit in silence with my cat, Mr. Whiskers, a half-empty bottle of wine on the table, feeling utterly lost. My world had imploded, and I didn't recognize the person I was now, hurt, paranoid, and alone. In my darker moments, I imagined doing all sorts of petty revenge, keying Michael's car, airing their dirty laundry on social media, you name it. But those thoughts, however tempting, felt hollow. I didn't just want to lash out. I wanted my life back. Eventually, I realized I needed help to climb out of the hole I was in. I found a therapist, Dr. Morgan, who became a lifeline. In her cozy office, I unloaded everything, the betrayal, the rage, the shame. She listened patiently. When I vented about wanting revenge, she told me gently, "It's natural to want justice, but maybe focus on how you can empower yourself through this, rather than just hurting them." That word, empower, stuck with me. On the drive home, I turned it over in my head. I could either remain a victim, or I could take control of the narrative. That night, I opened my laptop and dove into the internet, searching for stories of people who had clawed their way back from betrayals. I stumbled across a discussion about an old law called alienation of affection. Turns out, North Carolina is one of the few states where you can sue someone for wrecking your marriage. It was almost hard to believe, but it was real. I could haul my sister into court for what she'd done. The idea sent a jolt of energy through me. I also started recalling every sketchy thing I'd seen at work under Steve's leadership. If I was going to fight back, why not go 2 for 2? Maybe I could find a way to expose him as well. Rumors of financial shenanigans, hushed-up HR complaints. There was dirt if I dug for it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of purpose. I was done curling up in defeat. If I had hit rock bottom, the only way to go was up, and I was going to climb up with a vengeance. Once I decided to fight back, I got methodical. First order of business: take care of things legally. I told my divorce attorney I wanted to pursue that alienation of affection lawsuit against Emily. He warned it could get messy, but I didn't flinch. I wanted to send a message that what she did had consequences. Soon after, the paperwork was filed, and a process server handed my dear sister a nice, thick summons. I heard through my parents that Emily was completely knocked off balance by the lawsuit. She apparently cried to Mom that I was trying to ruin her life. Mom, to her credit, told Emily that she'd brought this on herself. Michael tried reaching out to me exactly once during this, leaving a voicemail ranting that I was going too far. If breaking your wife's heart isn't going too far, then what is? With the legal wheels turning on the home front, I turned my attention to work revenge. I came back from my short leave appearing subdued, even defeated. Steve had no idea I was quietly digging into everything I could. I discreetly contacted a couple of former coworkers who had left the company, and they dished on what I suspected. Steve had a history of bending rules. One ex-colleague from finance hinted that Steve fiddled with budget reports to boost his bonuses. Another from HR mentioned that complaints against him had mysteriously vanished. Empowered with those tips, I combed through our company files and emails when I had the chance. It was almost too easy. I found emails where Steve explicitly instructed a finance staffer to reclassify expenses to other departments. I copied everything and sent it to a private email for safekeeping. I also still had the smoking gun from my own ordeal, the email chain proving he requested my presentation file, and the document history showing he altered it. Piece by piece, I built a little dossier of his misdeeds. Around this time, I learned that a routine internal audit was scheduled for our branch. Talk about timing. If ever there was a chance to bring Steve down from the inside, this was it. I decided to give the auditors a helpful nudge. Using a throwaway email account, I sent an anonymous tip to the audit team leader, highlighting irregularities in our department's financial records and suggesting they look at who authorized certain changes. I didn't name Steve directly, but I laid out enough breadcrumbs that they'd inevitably trace back to him. By now, the pieces of my plan were in motion. Emily and Michael were sweating over the lawsuit, and Steve had no clue the noose was tightening around his career. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the upper hand. It was a good feeling. All I had to do next was sit back, just a little, and let the dominoes start falling, with a few well-timed pushes from me when necessary. Slowly but surely, the dominoes began to fall. At work, the internal audit went forward, and with the evidence I'd planted, Steve's financial misdeeds came to light. It turned out worse than the company even imagined. He'd been cooking the books to line his pockets. Within days, Steve was fired for gross misconduct. One morning, he was my cocky boss. By afternoon, security was escorting him out. I may have flashed him a polite smile as he passed my desk, a silent checkmate. In the aftermath, upper management offered me the promotion I had long deserved. It seems they realized I'd been the one holding things together all along. I accepted, with a slight increase in salary for good measure. It felt like a professional vindication. My career was back on track, and the office snake was gone. At home. Meanwhile, my lawsuit against Emily was barreling toward a court date neither she nor Michael wanted. Their lawyer reached out, and we agreed to try mediation. Facing them in a conference room was surreal. They both looked worn down and anxious. Good. They offered me a sum of money to settle. I countered for a bit more, not because I was greedy, but because I wanted it to hurt, and added one condition. Both of them had to write me sincere apology letters. I wanted their cowardly apologies in writing. Perhaps it was spite, or perhaps they truly felt remorse, but they agreed. In the end, they paid tens of thousands and handed over 2 letters full of mea culpas. I read those letters alone at home. They were dripping with regret and apologies. I cried, not because I forgave them, but because it finally felt like the chapter was closing with them acknowledging how deeply they'd wronged me. Word of the settlement spread around town. Suddenly, my sister and ex found themselves rather friendless. Many of our relatives and mutual friends cut them off socially, disgusted by what they'd done. Even at his job, I heard Michael's reputation took a hit. Apparently, his boss got wind of the drama and decided not to consider him for a promotion. Karma, as they say, is a beautiful thing. With my career restored and justice served on the family front, I finally felt free. I even took a 2-week vacation to Hawaii by myself to celebrate my new beginning. On a tranquil Maui beach, I realized I hadn't thought about Michael or Steve in days. I smiled at that thought, letting the ocean breeze wash away the last bits of anger and pain. They were thousands of miles away, and so was all that drama. In the months after the dust settled, I slowly rebuilt myself. I wasn't the same person I was before, and that was a good thing. I was tougher, wiser, and surprisingly more at peace. Justice had been served, not by a stroke of luck, but by my own determination to set things right. Emily ultimately moved out of town, and we haven't spoken since. I don't plan to anytime soon. She'll have to live with the consequences of her betrayal. My parents remain civil with her. She is their daughter, after all. but things will never be the same. As for Michael, our divorce was finalized without a hitch. He stayed with Emily from what I hear, but their relationship carries the weight of our history. Honestly, not my circus, not my monkeys. I've let go of my hatred for them. Letting it poison me any further would only give them more power. Steve, predictably, couldn't find another similar job. Our industry is tight-knit, and news of his fraudulent behavior followed him. Last I heard, he had to sell his fancy house and move to a new city for a smaller role. No sympathy from me there. On the bright side, my own career is flourishing. Leading my team as a project director, I made it a mission to foster the kind of supportive workplace I wish I'd always had. If someone on my team has a problem, we solve it together. No backstabbing allowed. Emotionally, healing took time, but I got there. I continued therapy, leaned on supportive friends, and even started dating again when I felt ready. I learned to enjoy my own company and the life I rebuilt. There's strength in knowing that being on my own is far better than being with people who drag you down. One evening on my porch, a close friend told me, "Jess, I'm so proud of you. You took a wrecked life and rebuilt it stronger than before." Hearing that made me realize I really did. I transformed the pain into power. Looking back, I see my story as more than just revenge. It's about reclaiming control. I didn't get to choose what happened to me, but I sure as hell chose how to respond. I refused to stay the victim. I became the author of my fate instead of a footnote in their stories. They say living well is the best revenge, and I'm truly living again. But let's be honest, seeing karma do its thing felt pretty damn good too. I got to watch those who hurt me stumble, and I kept right on rising. I started this journey as a broken-hearted woman who lost almost everything. I came out of it not just with payback, but with peace of mind. In the end, I found myself again, stronger and smarter. I'd call that a win. Betrayal nearly broke me, but instead it forged a stronger me. I learned that even after the worst betrayals, you can fight back and reclaim your life without losing yourself. My journey from victim to victor wasn't just about revenge. It was about self-respect and not letting others define my story.